I would also say that, going back to what you were saying about how much time children actually spend learning at school, it's not, they're there for 6, 7 hours a day. They're not, as you say, they're not spending 6 hours a day learning. And in fact, if you've got younger kids, like a 4-year, 5, 6-year-old, they learn through play. You just need to play with them, and this is how they absorb stuff. I mean, it's what you were saying about the unschooling. Yeah, we see ourselves as facilitators. We're not teachers. We find out what our kids' interests and passions are, and then we help them pursue those. And then all the stuff, the juicy stuff kind of comes out of that. Yeah, my son's taught himself to read, he's taught himself to write. He's not had formal lessons at all, and he's bilingual. So this is both Russian and English. My daughter sees what he's doing, and she naturally wants to copy Big Brother. So we bought her books because she likes to draw. So we bought her books where she can trace the outlines of the letters, so she's learning to write that way. And she asks us for that. We don't have to force her to do it because that intrinsic motivation is important. If kids are motivated to do something, you don't have to sit over them and get them, do that. They will just do it.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Family Man Entrepreneurs. I am very lucky to have Richard Holt here today. He is the founder of the Homeschool Freedom Club and recently started a very interesting course called Young Entrepreneurs Startups, which is for young people and teaching them that very, very important skill of being an entrepreneur and learning everything that comes with that. And he has such an interesting story, such an interesting backstory. Father of 3, he's an amazing man. So I am very much looking forward to this conversation. So Richard, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here, Mark. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
Thank you very much for being here. Tell me a bit about how you got to this point where you're focusing on both entrepreneurship and home education. A bit about your backstory.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a long story. I come from a family anyway. My parents had their own business, but their business actually didn't end well. They had money issues, and so for the longest time, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to have a job. I wanted to have a salary, and just get my monthly pay. And then about 20 years ago, just an opportunity literally fell into my lap to start an event management business. And so I just took it. I thought, okay, it's a no-brainer this. So I was able to triple what I was earning as a salary literally overnight just by starting on my own. And so obviously the money was it was a bit of a draw for that. And I ran that for 15 years, that business. And unfortunately, hospitality was one of the first industries that disappeared when COVID hit. And so the business basically went to the wall then. And I had to sort of just redirect myself. And we were talking about balance just before the call started, actually. And I'd been looking to get out of this because I've got 3 children. I've got a 21-year-old from my first marriage and a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. So in 2020, I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, basically. I was never at home because I was traveling all over the world running events. And, I used to run them on site. I used to do the site visits and all that sort of stuff. So I was constantly traveling. And my wife was at home with 2 little kids that I'd come back completely shattered from the event and just was, literally for a day or two was completely useless. They want dad because they haven't seen him for a while. And of course, dad's not really present. So I started looking around for other ways to make an income. And we also, at that time, we started home educating. So my son had literally just started school. He was 4 years old. He'd done 2 terms at school and COVID hits. And of course, we ended up homeschooling. Discovered was, well, first up, my wife's Russian. And she was completely shocked that kids in the UK go to school at 4 because they're 6 or 7 before they even start school. And we were looking at what was coming home from school and thinking, he's 4. He doesn't need to be. Why is he doing this stuff? And so when all the kids went back to school after the lockdowns ended, he didn't. And we decided to carry on homeschooling. And it kind of suited because I was now at home. I wasn't traveling all over the place. We were able to do this. My wife had her own business as well and still does. And we were at home educating, but it brought into my consciousness the fact that actually not everybody was lucky enough to be able to do this, to be able to actually take their kids out of the school system. That frankly, the more I look into it, the more I don't believe in it. And a lot of people want to do this, but can't because they're hamstrung financially. They need school is effectively the free babysitter, which is what it was set up to be in the Industrial Revolution, so that parents
Mm-hmm.
could go and work in the factories. And it hasn't really changed an awful lot since those times. So I started up the Homeschool Freedom Club as a place for home educating parents to come and try and find ways to make an income and to try and encourage people that were home educating or people that wanted to home educate but weren't, try and encourage them to take the step into kind of entrepreneurship and to running their own businesses, so that they could then also home educate their children. So that was how that started. And I set that up, what was it? I don't know, 2021, so 3.5 years ago. And over time, it became apparent that my son, who's now 9, and home educated kids in general, they don't fit that mold. Okay, so school effectively what it does, it indoctrinates children into a 5-day working week. They're dropped off at school at 8:30 or 9 in the morning, whatever time it is. They're picked up by the parents at maybe 3, 4, maybe 5, 6 in the afternoon if there's after school clubs. So children are being pushed into this model that's then designed to make them ready for the workplace. So they've got an authority figure at the front of the class, the teacher, who they're not allowed to question. You have to put your hand up to go to the toilet. You've got to, the teacher is the absolute authority, and it's getting them ready for having a boss as well. And apart from that, schools don't teach any kind of critical thinking. You regurgitate facts to get a piece of paper at the end of the day, and that's it, And I was looking at my kids, and I was looking at other home educated kids that I know, and I'm thinking, you're just not going to fit into that. You're not going to want to work for a boss because you're used to free thinking. You've been taught to have critical thought, and you're not used to sitting at a desk. I mean, my kids are unschooled, which basically means we're child-led. So they decide what they're interested in, and then we work around that. And so, and that's how they're educated. And they're just not going to fit into a workplace. And so I was looking at this and thinking, and looking around, and so I wasn't really seeing an awful lot out there in terms of education, teaching kids how to become entrepreneurs. And so it was just a random conversation with a friend of mine who's actually Cypriot but lives in the UK. And I was sort of bringing this up to her because she's got 3 kids who are also home educated. She unschools as well. And I was like, Michelle, what can we do about this? And, I'm sort of thinking about putting together a course. And she was like, oh, about 5 years ago, I actually did the outline for a course for young entrepreneurs and never did anything with it. And, she's got ADHD. So she's got millions of great ideas. She puts them onto paper and then just, they never actually does anything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Michelle, can you send it across to me to have a look at?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, absolutely. I'll dig it out. And I was like, this is absolutely brilliant. She'd outlined a whole 16-week course, taking you through from sort of what is entrepreneurship and how to find your passion, through goal setting, through just bringing your product to life, or your service to life, to marketing, to sales, all the aspects of this. And I'm like, we have to do this, and I'm not going to do it without you. We'll do it together. And that was how Young Entrepreneur Startups was formed, basically. So sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded story to get to this point, but that's how the two kind of came together.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And that's just going back to kids, what an amazing experience it is actually just to even grow up with both you and your wife that are both entrepreneurs, and actually seeing that up close, where they just see the experience of you setting things up, of you trying things out, of having that freedom of being able to go like, okay, I'm going to try this. This looks like a really good business plan. I'm going to do the research. I'm going to be sensible about it, and I'm going to go for it. And not only that, it's something you believe in from an ideological point of view. Absolutely. It's something that you can say, I want to see this in the world because I want the future to look like that. I want to empower the kids to go like, okay, well, I don't have to work for an office. I have to work in an office in a cubicle if I don't want to. And maybe they do, and that's absolutely fine as well. But it's that's why there's like 8 billion people in the world, right? Not everybody's going to be the same. And it's just amazing to have that view on life, and that to internalize that and say, okay, well, this is just normal. I can just create a company. Like, it's not
Yeah,
complicated. It's not difficult. It's not.
yeah,
It's just start. You just investigate, and you have to learn the different aspects of what it is to become an entrepreneur. But a lot of
yeah,
it is trying things out. And what I
absolutely.
love about your course is that it just gives them that confidence and just a basic framework, and it just saves them so much time as well to trying to sort things out themselves. And
Yeah,
kids often need a bit of support just to guide them in the right lines with what they are interested in. So kind of what you
yeah,
said about the unschooling, right? It is child-led.
yeah,
They are still doing their thing, but it's still their project, and
yeah,
you're there to support them and to teach them
exactly.
from your experience. So that is such an interesting history you have there. And
Thank you.
how did did the kids change? So if I didn't get that right, did the kids change from going to school to being homeschooled, or were they always
So,
homeschooled?
so my oldest daughter, who's 21, she's been all the way through
Hmm.
the school system,
Okay.
and she's at university now studying marine biology
Hmm.
and absolutely loving it. So I've seen,
Hmm.
I've done the school runs, I've been the school run dad, I've chaired PTA and all that sort of stuff. So I've
Hmm.
done the school side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, my little boy, who's now 9,
Hmm.
he literally did 2 terms at school before
Okay.
COVID hit. And my daughter, who's now 6, she's never even seen the inside of it so much as a kindergarten. She's always been
Okay.
at home. And I mean, it's in what you were saying there about kids being able to see how, my wife and I, we create businesses, we bring them into being, we try
Hmm.
different things. I think another important aspect of that is that they also see that we're not, we have some failures and that we're not afraid of those failures and that we learn from those.
Hmm.
Because that's a really important mindset aspect is
Hmm.
not to be, as soon as something doesn't work, oh, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
We're trying to currently find a model at the moment because my wife, she's run nurseries in Moscow. She's a speech therapist. She's a psycholinguist. And with me being a native English speaker and with there being a lot of Russians and Cypriots here, we're starting like an English club.
Oh, brilliant.
So where kids can come and learn from a native English speaker, and we discuss
Hmm.
books and we're trying different models at the moment, and we're just not quite getting it right yet. There's something
Hmm.
that's not quite gelling, but they're watching us and they're seeing us try different things to try and make this work, and we will make it work. It will happen, but it's just taking a bit
Hmm.
of time. But you're right. It's great that they get to see that. I think it's very nice that they get to see their parents working together
Hmm.
and see how those relationships work. But also, when you home educate, and I noticed the difference, like I say, I've got an older daughter who's been through the school system. I have a different relationship with my 2 youngest than I did with my oldest at the same age because they're with us all the time. It's just a different closeness. I don't really know how to articulate it better, but it's just a closer relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's completely normal because they take on your values and they spend time with you. So
Yeah,
it's normal that you create that bond.
yeah,
That's a lot more tighter compared to kids that are at school.
yeah,
And I was a teacher for many years, and then I went into managing teachers before I went into the managing roles in the corporate world. And so I have a lot of experience with the
yeah,
education system
yeah,
and teaching and working with kids as well. And it is I don't think a lot of parents realize how much actual teaching time there is at school, how much
yes,
actual time is spent on explaining the material and doing some of the work, some of the exercises, some of the
yeah,
experiments and the science classes is very, very little compared to all the time they spend at school. As you said, it's a bit of a daycare,
yeah,
and it was initially kind of set up for
yeah,
that for in the Industrial Revolution. Um, and it's amazing how many people are seeing this now. Then you could see, for example, you have the famous Sir Ken Robinson,
yes.
whose TED Talk was just viewed by millions and millions of
That's an
people about
amazing talk.
how,
Yeah.
yeah, about how It's amazing how, the amount of views just shows people are onto it right now. And
Yeah,
so it's amazing that you help them to kind of find that balance between doing, having a job or having a business and schooling, and trying to combine that. We're all about the balance here as well. So what are
yeah,
some of the best ways you found people? Let's say you have a couple that wants to homeschool their kids,
yeah,
but they really don't know, they're stuck in their regular job. What
yeah,
would be kind of the first step that they could take to think, okay, I actually want to work from home and spend
yeah,
all this time with the kids? How can I start thinking about switching from my 9 to 5 job to a
yeah.
homeschooling situation?
I mean, everybody's different at the end of the day, and it largely depends on the financial situation. I mean, what we're seeing at the moment, isn't it, is that a lot of people are needing two incomes just to literally survive,
Hmm.
let alone thrive, in today's sort of economy. So, I mean, in a lot of cases, sometimes it's a case of saying, okay, one parent is going to stay at work, one is going to be at home. We'll take the financial hit for now,
Hmm.
and then and work it from there. Another way is to start preparing a business maybe in the evenings, in any spare time that you've got, and just look around. I mean, there's so much opportunity out there now thanks to the
Hmm.
internet, the power of the
Yeah.
internet. I mean, my son, he's 9 years old. He's into Minecraft, so he started putting videos up about Minecraft, and he got 5,500 views on one the other week.
Wow.
This is the sort of thing, if you have an interest or a hobby, look at ways of trying to monetize that. So
Hmm.
something that you enjoy doing that you can try and make a little bit of money from on the side, and hopefully, try and grow whilst you're still at work. If you can't take the step of losing a salary, then try and grow something. Look at different means of investing as well. I mean, the markets at the moment are shocking. We've
Yeah.
watched sort of cryptocurrency
Hmm.
tank a little bit this week, but it'll come back. And we've watched, the stock markets, especially in Japan, have kind of gone a bit west. But look at making, if you've got savings, put your money to work for you.
Yeah.
If you have money in the bank, make it work for you. Try and gain an income that way as well, rather than and this is all part of, I don't know if you read Robert Kiyosaki, the cash flow quadrants. So you've got was it the ESBI quadrant: employee,
Hmm.
self-employed, business owner, an investor. And you want to be a business owner or an investor. So if you've got money sitting in the bank, it's currently losing money because of inflation. The bank's paying you what, 1-2%. Inflation is still double figures, I'm presuming. So your money is becoming worth less and less. So put it to work for you, and actually put it into something that can give you some sort of a monthly income. So there's all sorts of ways of starting to sort of prepare the ground for that. But it's going to take, it's not just going to happen instantly. It takes a little while to grow these things. Network marketing is not everybody's cup of tea, but actually it's a very democratic way actually of, you see so many people that go into network marketing and they do make good money from it.
Hmm.
So, maybe look at that. If you've got a decent network of friends or colleagues or people that find some products that you actually resonate with and that you genuinely you genuinely think are good products and that really suit you, because then you'll be more genuine in putting them out to people. So network marketing is another great way, and you can start small. You can start in the evenings. Find the product that you like. Just start putting stuff onto your Facebook profile. Most people are on social media of one form or another. Try and find ways of monetizing that. So grow your friend base on Facebook, or get that Instagram account properly up and running, and putting stuff in there that's relevant. So these are ways to start sort of small, but everybody has to start somewhere, and over time it will grow. So from a financial perspective, I would say that. I would also say that going back to what you were saying about how much time children actually spend learning at school, it's not, they're there for what, 6-7 hours a day. They're not, as you say, they're not spending 6 hours a day learning. And in fact, if you've got younger kids, like a 4-year, 5, 6-year-olds, they learn through play. You just need to play with them, and this is how they absorb stuff. I mean, it's what you were saying about the unschooling. Yeah, we see ourselves as facilitators. We're not teachers. We find out what our kids' interests and passions are, and then we help them pursue those. And
Hmm.
then all the good stuff, the juicy stuff kind of comes out of that. Yeah, my son's taught himself to read, he's taught himself to write. He's not had formal lessons at all, and he's bilingual. So this is both Russian and English.
Yeah.
My daughter sees what he's doing, and she naturally wants to copy Big Brother. So
Hmm.
we bought her books because she likes to draw. So we bought her books where she can trace the outlines of the letters, so she's learning to write that way. And she asks us for that. We don't have to force her to do it because that intrinsic motivation is important. If kids are motivated to do something, you don't have to sit over them and get them, do that. They will just do it.
Yeah.
This is, something else that I think when you're looking at homeschooling or home educating, for us, it's an intrinsic part of our life. So our life kind of revolves around that. It's not something separate that we do educating the kids. It's in every facet of what we do every day. And they're sponges. We don't send them to school to learn to walk or talk. So what makes you think they can't learn to read or write without someone sat over them and spelling everything out, We sit and read books to them, bedtime stories, and they learn from that. And, my son one day, he suddenly picked up a book and he started reading to his sister. This is when he was about 6. And it was like, wow, didn't know you could do that. They're just learning, but they're learning all the time, and you just don't realize it. Baking in the kitchen, it can be something as simple as baking a cake together. They love the tactile stuff with the flour and sensory, But you also, okay, how much is 120 grams of butter? What's 300 grams of flour look like? Okay, mix it all together, get your fingers in there, enjoy it, How hot does the oven need to be? They go shopping with us, how much do things cost? Can you add these up together, these two items? And it's just make a game of it. And so
Exactly.
don't think of that education as something completely separate that you have to do. You step out of the school system for a reason. You're not there to emulate school. You're not
Hmm.
there. I put a post about this yesterday, actually. You're not there to judge your kids against other kids that are in school and against these completely fake systems that are, these exams that are set by bureaucrats in an office somewhere. You've removed your kids from school for a reason, okay, for a very sound reason. It's that you don't want them to go through that. You don't want to see them judged against their peers, because that's where so much damage is done. Just accept that they will evolve in their own time, and they will learn stuff when they need to learn it. My son learned to read, and really improved his reading through playing Minecraft, you know,
Hmm. Well,
and because basically Minecraft doesn't interest me in the slightest. I'm like, okay, I'll set you up an account and you can do all this stuff, but if you want books on it, we'll buy you books, but you need to learn to read it. And he did, because it really interested him. So what I'm trying to say is that home education, it's just a part of the fabric of our day-to-day life. And it
yeah.
never stops. That
Yeah.
education never stops.
Hmm. Yeah. It's very interesting to see how we made that distinction between work and play, right?
Yeah,
And then going back to, for example, somebody like Alan Watts
yeah,
that used to talk about, you have to
yeah,
basically stop making a distinction between work and play and just play all the time. Like, it doesn't matter if
yeah,
you even have an office job or whatever, just see it as play. And then from then on, if you want to do something else, do something like what you like.
yeah,
You see so many more things happening for you when you actually do what you
yeah,
like and you have the attitudes and everything. And talk about attitudes. Coming back a bit to the what you said about the parents and how they can change from with their current situation to a more comfortable homeschooling situation, and
yeah,
also just the homeschooling in general. What are some tips you can give on mindset and how to change? Because I feel for a lot of people, it's the
yeah,
mindset of, I can't do it. This is for special people. Your parents would have to have been entrepreneurs. Only rich people can do it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and these kind of things. So what have you seen in your experience talking to other people? And of course, you have a podcast as well where you interview people and how they set up their businesses. So
Yeah.
from what you've learned, what tips can you give parents?
But the point is, if you believe you can do it or you believe you can't do it, you're right either way.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whichever you believe, you're going to be right. So just
Hmm.
set out with an open mind, set out with a positive outlook. And, like you were saying, it was really important. Pick something, if you're going to start a business, pick something that you enjoy doing. Okay. Just something that really lights you up. Because that does make all the difference, and that does put a more positive spin on it. With any business, any business owner will tell you, you have good times, you have great times, you have really bad times sometimes as well. Um, but the way I look at it is that any obstacle that you hit, it's there to teach you something. Okay. There's a fantastic book by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way.
Hmm.
And it's a fantastic book, and I really recommend anyone to read that that's going through a bit of a tough patch, because it gives loads of examples in there of people that could have given up when they hit an obstacle, but they didn't. Actually, they looked at it and they worked around it, they went over it, they did whatever, but they did whatever it took, but they learned from it most of all. Once you have that mindset, you're pretty much invincible, because it doesn't matter what life chucks at you. It's okay. Just sit back, don't take it personally. Just take some time out and just look at what's happening. And, is this trying to tell you something? What can I learn from this? Am I maybe I'm taking my business in the wrong direction? And yeah, this has happened with, actually with my current business, Young Entrepreneur Startups, that I'm running with Michelle. So we've run a bunch of live courses, and we're about to start a membership. And then we're like, actually, do we need to integrate all this stuff together? And because we were sort of struggling to get sales, and the membership wasn't really, we were just looking at it thinking it's not really quite doing it for us. And so we're actually going to integrate everything more holistically, to provide a course that actually, instead of being 12 or 16 weeks, it supports over a year, and it's got all these different elements put in together. And this was something, it was just through hitting these barriers and people saying, actually, no, we don't want to pay for this. And, it made us look at things differently. So just keep an open mind on everything that you do. Really keep an open mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that is definitely not taught at school.
Yeah.
And it's something that, because obviously you do something wrong and you get penalized for doing something wrong. You get punished,
exactly.
you get bad marks. So it doesn't invite the whole playing aspect of, okay, I'm just going to try this, see if it works. If not, I get to learn something from it. And so it's a very good book. I definitely would recommend it as well. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
And look, failure is a part of life. And as you say, we're taught that at school, failure is a disaster. You fail your exams, it's going to impact you for the rest of your life, and children aren't given that opportunity to fail, and it's needed. You learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. I mean,
Absolutely. And coming back to what your whole homeschooling or unschooling journey, I presume, obviously for the kids is a big change, for not necessarily for your kids, but for kids that have gone through the system.
Yeah.
What about you as a father and a man? Obviously, it's a big change for you as well, because you were not doing that before. So what are some things that you feel you've learned from going on that journey?
You know what? It's brought us together far closer as a family unit. The whole home education, being at home all the time. I had mental health issues. I've had them for quite a chunk of my life. I didn't realize I had them until about 6 years ago, when I hit a real low spot. I had major depression, and I literally couldn't get out of bed for about a month. And at that point, I realized that something had to change. And I was very fortunate to have a very supportive wife who was like, just take all the time and space that you need, because I had depression around the birth of all three of my children, interestingly. And when my youngest was born, that was the point where it was like, just, okay, enough is enough. Something really, really got to give. And so I basically set myself, my mother was on antidepressants. I saw what they did to her. I didn't want to take the pharmaceutical route. I tried a couple of psychologists, just didn't gel with that. So I just went on a massive self-help rampage. I went to Mind Valley, did a bunch of courses off of there about victimhood, because I recognized I was in a victim position, and it's kind of gone on from there. And the last 6 years I've read, I can't even remember how many self-help books and done how many courses. It's just a constant learning for me. And coming into that situation, but for me, the kids were always a bit separate to me. So there was me and my wife, and there was me and my kids, and I just didn't really click with them in the way that a father should. And actually coming to this situation where we were home educating, and my wife and I both decided actually we wanted to do it at the same time, and being at home with them all the time has been literally the best thing that could have happened to me as a parent, because it's made me see just all the wonderful craziness that they bring to daily life, which I never I always had that disconnect because I had a business from when my oldest was 3 years old. I was traveling, and so I was never really there to see the family side of life an awful lot. Some years I was away three weeks out of four, working, and so I just didn't have that connection. And what the current situation has brought to me, and my wife would actually say we're really grateful to COVID for shaking things up because it brought us to so many different realizations. Number one being the failings of the school system, and lots of other stuff besides. But it's it's gifted me this opportunity, almost like a second chance, to really be a good dad. And I need for the balance side of things, I still have to watch my mental health. I think depression is one of those things, it never goes away, but I know the signs of it now. I know when it's coming, and I can take avoiding action. I can actually, I can work around it. And a part of that for me is having a morning routine. This is part of my balance and how I balance myself. So I'm an early bird. I'm usually up at 5:30 in the morning. I go out, I go for a bike ride. We live near the sea. We're literally a 5-minute ride from the sea. There's a beautiful coastal path. I go out, find a quiet space. I sit, I meditate. Okay, I spend at least sort of 20 to 30 minutes a day meditating. I do gratitudes, and I go for a swim in the sea. There's like some body weight sort of workout machines down by the coast as well. So 2 or 3 days a week I do that. And what I've done is I've actually prioritized me. So the kids aren't awake. Usually my wife's not awake either. That's my time. And so I go out, I do things that I need to do. I don't switch on my phone until I've done that. I don't switch on the laptop till I've done that, because that's what keeps me sane, and that's what recharges me for the day. And so that's how I keep, it's a very important part of my daily being balanced. And as for the work aspects, my wife and I, we work as a team. Okay, so at the moment she's taking the kids out to the beach, so I've got a bit of quiet time so I can chat to you. And I can get a few other bits done. I'm actually presenting at the Children's Mental Health Matters Summit in September as well on empowerment in entrepreneurship. So I'm currently sort of putting together presentation for that and everything. So, and then when she needs quiet time, I take the kids out. Sometimes we go out as a family, all four of us. But it just, whoever has needs, we talk to each other, we communicate with each other. And that's another important part of keeping balanced. And it can get crazy. There are times literally where we barely get a chance to say 2 words to each other from morning till nighttime, just because the kids are always at home. We've got things we need to do, and but we come nighttime, we always say 5 minutes just to talk about the day. Okay, what we're doing tomorrow, who's doing what, when,
Yeah.
And I know some people do this at the beginning of the week, but our weeks can be quite fluid. We don't have any kind of a structure to the day at all, which isn't for everybody, but it works. It works for us and it works for our kids. So yeah, the balance aspect, it's really, really important, but communication is fundamental to that. And just putting your needs, it's not wrong to put your needs first. Okay. And this was part of my problem. I used to put everybody else ahead of me. And now, my wife's perfectly happy with that because she's not even awake anyway when I'm out the door. And I've just changed my routine a bit. So I'm in bed a bit earlier. I get up earlier. And that just gives me that time that I need to balance myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for sharing that. And absolutely. That's something that is often overseen in families in general, not just homeschooling families, like that need of just doing what lights you up, what makes you feel good, what brings you that balance, as you said. Like a half an hour a day, 20 minutes a day, even if it's like writing or a bit of dancing, just put on some music and dance if you like. Like things that you like doing, and that you need to recharge yourself for the rest of the day. That's
and I would say looking after your health generally is really, really important part of that balance. Say eat well, eat balanced meals. Don't eat a load of processed rubbish. Stay off the fizzy drinks. And I mean, to be honest, I used to be a bit of a drinker, but now I barely touch it. I don't need it. I have a glass of wine. It's a pleasure to have it every so often, but it might be, once a fortnight. And I feel so much better for that, waking up without the fuzzy head and that heavy feeling after a night on the beers or whatever. And
it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you want to be present with your kids, you want to be present for your wife, your business,
Yeah,
You just want to be there. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
it makes such a difference. And yeah, it's you mentioned before we started on the recording
Yeah,
that you saw there's a lot of men that also suffer with like some mental health issues, maybe some depression, or at least
yeah,
feeling lost in some
yeah,
way.
yeah.
From your experience going through what you did, do you have any advice for them?
Everybody's different. So everybody will tackle things in different ways. The first thing is you have to actually acknowledge that you've got a problem. Okay.
Hmm.
You have to actually recognize the fact that you have an issue, that it lies within you, that it's not everybody else's fault around you. And then once you recognize that fact, then you can start to take action on it. And different things will work for different people. But the most important thing is just to recognize that the solution is in you.
Hmm.
It's not without you, it's within you. I was very big on the blame thing. Like I say, it's a total victim position. And once you recognize actually that you're not a victim, once you recognize that actually you do hold the keys to your own destiny and that you can make things happen, that's when
Hmm.
things really start to turn around. So
Yeah,
it's a tough place to be. And that black dog's on you, it's a really tough place to be. And it's not fun. So, you know, just recognize that you have all the answers actually within you. You just need to find them.
yeah, yeah. And it's such a weight off as well if you feel like, okay, I can fix it,
Yeah.
right? It's not,
Yeah.
I don't have to wait for somebody else to do something. I don't have to wait for, um, you know, for somebody to forgive me or I have to forgive them or we have to, there's always something going on.
Yeah.
You can all do that yourself. There's literally nobody that has to wait or you
Absolutely.
don't have to wait for anyone to do anything.
And
And sorry.
yeah, something I was going to say, the other big realization I had was that, we're so burdened. You've got this little voice in your head, haven't you? And it constantly
Mhm.
chatters at you. But the one of the big realizations for me was that that is not me,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
And if that voice was a person, you'd tell it to push off most of the time because it would drive you insane. And it was
Yeah.
really, I read a fantastic, anybody that's in a tough place mentally that's having these issues, I read a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. And that was pivotal for me in changing my mindset around because it made me realize that my thoughts are not me. And it made me realize that I can actually sit back and I can just look at that chatter rather than participating in it. And that was actually that was a huge step for me in sort of recovering.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. Absolutely. Oh, I love that you said that. And you're talking about another thing you wanted to mention as well is that you were talking about teamwork earlier with you and your wife.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's so important to see your unit as a team. And when you communicate with them, see them as the team you're in. Like they're
Yeah.
not as in separate entities, completely different from you. You have to somehow
Yeah.
have a power struggle with, you're
Yeah.
all in the
Yeah.
same boat. So it makes such a difference just changing the point of view
Yeah.
on that.
And
Yeah, it's
and the kids
wonderful.
are all part of that team as well,
Yeah.
and we give them as much latitude to make their own decisions as we can as well. I
Hmm.
mean, obviously there are some things that are non-negotiables. We have to go out.
Hmm.
They're too young.
Yeah.
We can't leave them in the house.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's small stuff like what do you want to eat for dinner?
Hmm.
What you having for breakfast? Just think what do you want, what do you do? What game do you want to play?
Hmm.
What do you like to
Yeah.
bake? What cake would you? Just things like that. It makes them feel more empowered
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah. And you hear from a lot of homeschooling parents, the morning routine tends to be a lot more easygoing if they're not rushed to be.
Oh, God.
for-
I hated
yeah.
the school run routine. Always, to eat half a slice of toast in the morning. It used to drive
Yeah.
me completely nuts. So yeah, it's so much more pleasant. Kids, they don't have a set bedtime. They don't have a set wake up time unless we have to be out the door to go somewhere. We just
Yeah.
leave them to wake up naturally when they're ready,
Yeah.
and then
Good.
breakfast is a
Yeah.
leisurely affair. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I did want to ask you one more question about homeschooling because this is
yeah,
something people always say. Like, what
yeah,
about the socialization? Like, will they just
yeah,
be, you know, stuck at looking at the screen all day and not being
yeah,
able to talk to people, or just being very awkward in front of strangers because they spend so
yeah.
much time with you?
Uh-huh.
What is your rebuttal,
Well,
your experience with
yeah.
homeschooling?
I mean, up to a certain age, kids all they need is their parents. That
Hmm.
we cater for their main needs. Once they get past that, so my little boy 9 now, for example, he's with friends at the moment. It's the school holidays here anyway, so He's with friends at the beach. But we don't live in a cave, you know. We go out. Excuse me.
Yeah.
The kids get to meet a far broader spectrum of people than they would do sat in a classroom. They, you know, in a classroom, it's a very artificial situation where you're sat with 30 people your own age. You know, when you go out to make friends, it's the first thing you check is, you know, were you 10 years old between the 1st of September and the 31st of August, 1984, 85? It just,
Yeah.
you don't do that. So they're very confident with adults because they haven't had that authority figure, a teacher. You've got to do that. You've got to do that. You know, telling them what they've got to do every step of the way. And when it comes to meeting other kids, again, they're just very gregarious. They're very outgoing. We go to a play park somewhere, inevitably they'll be with the gang kids and they'll be a part of that. You know, I went through the school system. I was shy as anything when I came out of the school system. I still hate networking now. You know, I hate walking into a room full of people. I just, you know, whereas for them, it's just part of normal natural life. And, you know, in the UK especially, there are so many home education meetups. There's so many groups that you can go to. And they're meeting kids that are sort of from babies all the way up to teens. And they get to interact with those kids and they learn how to talk to kids that are older than them. You know, my little boy, he sees everyone as an equal. He doesn't see adults as people to be feared. He's respectful, but he will happily go and talk to an adult, which I wouldn't have done at his age, you know.
Yeah.
So the whole lack of socialization thing, it's a complete myth. Even where we live in Cyprus, where home education is actually illegal. So there are no real home ed groups here. But the schools, you know, the schools here start early. They're finished by 1:30. We've got other friends. So, you know, we hang out as a family in the morning. In the afternoon, we go and meet the friends. It's just, you just adjust and adapt your life accordingly. But they get plenty of socialization. Yesterday, we were at a mini golf course with a bunch of friends, you know, just how we roll. It's a lot of fun. And they certainly don't lose out in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. There's definitely ways to do things, and of course it depends on everybody's situation. And very often, you know, there's still clubs you can join as well, like the sports clubs and different things you can join and make friends over there. So there's always.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many of them. Honestly, there's so many options. And even just taking them down, you know, meet a bunch of, it doesn't have to cost you anything, meet a bunch of parents down at the playground or, you know, down at the beach or whatever. And the kids, you know, and we get a whole bunch of families together and we do that. We go picnics in the mountains or, yeah, they went camping with a bunch of friends a few weeks ago. Just, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time, Richard. Can I ask you one last thing? Where can people find the information about you and Homeschooling Freedom Club and the Yes course?
Yeah, so we have a website for young entrepreneur startups, and it's just www.youngentrepreneurstartups.com, all together, no hyphens or anything. The Homeschool Freedom Club is on Facebook. It's just a Facebook group. So if you just put at Homeschool Freedom Club all together, you'll find me.
Perfect. Okay, and I'll post the links below on Spotify and YouTube, so people can see that as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark.
And have an amazing day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks ever so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.